was a book written by a Greek scholar named Homer, and he said that all of the gods of Greece had to go to Ethiopia every year to renew themselves. Do you understand that? That even their God had to check in with Africa, say, yo, Mother Africa, I need some fire. I ran out of steam over there in the coal.
Okay. Yep.
History will erase the mysteries, is the point I'm trying to make by dropping these few little jewels, right? That if you know your history, nobody can mess with you. Have anybody, I've got hundreds of tapes on YouTube. Have you ever seen anybody mess with me? No. Ain't nobody gonna mess with me. Because I stand on all those ancestors, white ones and black ones, who told the truth. People don't mess with truth. They hope you don't see the truth, but they don't mess with truth.
Melody Records, World Philosopher Gambia. Hit melody in control. You gotta take control. So much trouble, where are our leaders? Take control. Not any route shall lead yourself now. We gotta take control. We live so terrible, natural disasters. Take control. When on the right shall lead yourself, yeah. Life is a fight between wrong against the truth. The ones will live under your control, yeah. Satan is here to fight against the truth. When Satan leads you out of control, it seems he has taken control. Cause man allows him to rule well. God is the ruler of all that rules. Reality that shall control. We gotta take control. So much trouble, where are our leaders? Take control. Not any route shall lead yourself now. We gotta take control. We live so terrible, natural disasters. Take control. When on the right shall lead yourself.
We always say that a lot, because nobody should be burning nobody out, you know. If we help each other, we shouldn't burn out the help. And that's one thing that also can be frustrating. You know, the people who help you are the ones who give the most burdens to. And then when people pass, everybody got, oh my God, I love them and this and that. You know, so if we love each other, let's just kind of help each other out. This is not a smorgasbord, it's not all you eat. We're going to have some light refreshments, water, granola, things like that, so nobody gets itis. You know, I mean, we just want to keep you nourished and alert. This is what we call communiversity. And communiversity means all age learning. And the particular thought and message today was to have the elder speak to us on his multi-generations of what he has seen and communicate to all of you different professionals and all you different organizations who are represented here, so that we can collectively, even from a Buffalo perspective, but with a global impact, what do we have in our hands, and what can we all do based upon the information shared and the question and answer, which I think might become more important. You know, we have to create spaces that our community can be safe to ask questions. We're safe to be ignorant coming in, but we want to encourage wisdom going out. So we don't want to shame people for what they don't know. And that's another problem that happens in many organizations. We don't make people feel comfortable with where they're at. And if we don't meet people where they're at, then we're not going to have a heart-to-heart, hand-to-hand, mind-to-mind communication. That's like saying this is our community. It's not our community because we're inhabitants. It's our community when we own and we control it. And that you just inhabit. You don't own houses, people don't move. You can talk about gentrification all you want. Gentrification happens when you don't own your homes. You don't own your land. Now culturally, black people control where they own it and they took care of it unless somebody take it. So we might just have to reshape, some of our thinking and do that patiently.
Right.
Because we all in together, man. Ain't nobody else come and save us. So look around, all the help you need is going to be probably in your vicinity. I don't know, who else is coming to save us. They hopefully have thousands of years. And as we hear the history, we'll realize that no one else has done it. So it's going to be up to us, and I think that we're capable. So I'm waiting for one or two more people to come in so we can start the libation. And then we're going to be getting ready. Please sign in. Make sure you introduce yourself to everybody you don't know and say good day or whatever kind of greeting you have for those you do know. Make everybody feel welcome. Act like we're family. We're totally perfect. You're ready to go. We're going to ask Mother Taliba to please come up, and we're going to get started on behalf of the Juneteenth. She is going to come and give a couple of announcements, and then we're going to go directly into our opening quickly, and we're going to go right into the message. Sure.
Hotep, everyone. I bring you greetings from Juneteenth Festival Board and volunteers. We're really excited about having Brother James Small here speaking as a part of our Sankofa portion of our annual festival. We are going to be, can't hear me? Oh, okay. He's just, I'm saying, see, trying to signal me. I left my glasses on the table. I don't know if he was signaling me or not. But we're excited about hearing the brother. I am a member, and there's some of us in the organization who are members of ASCAT. That's where I first learned about Professor Small. And every time he speaks, I listen to him. Now, even some of us, when we went to Ghana a few years ago, we visited his hotel. Yes. And You know, that was an experience to be there, to visit the hotel, and how we as a community are coming together to purchase land in Ghana. And when we go there, we should support them. And that's why we have to get into changing our minds and doing things the way we should be doing them. So I know we're going to all be so pleased. And there was one brother at a ASCAT conference, he didn't say enlightened, but endarkened by what Professor Spall has to say. We've got some other activities that are coming on the schedule, I think is in this week's Challenger. And so there are a lot of activities going on. Please take the time to visit us. We put in a lot of work and effort year-round, not just this weekend coming up. So please support us, and thank you for coming out today. Right. Shay.
Peace, family. Peace. I'm Ioye Nike. Thank you so much for coming together today so that we can deepen our understanding of ourselves, right? And just be a one collective mind to create an African universe, one voice, one song. So before anything else is done, Africans always, okay. So we're going to pour libation. Libation is a way that Africans when we come together, we always give honor and respect to the creator, maintainer, and sustainer of all things in the universe. We also give respect and honor to nature, because if we are not good stewards of nature, it's very simple, we die, right? And because we did not take care of the water right here, where I used to go fishing every week with my dad, and we ate that fish. They now say no more than 2 fish a month, right? Because we did not take care of the air, our air quality is so horrible. We have respiratory issues run amok in this area. So we honor the land, because if we don't, we can't eat from it. Right. So the Creator has given us all that we need. We just need to make sure that we are connected to it so that we can honor ourselves, the God in us, and reflect that out so that others may see the deity in themselves, because some have been so broken that they have forgotten. At this time, I will, as a Yoruba priest, I will be doing the libation in Yoruba, but I have explained to you what I'll be saying already. Okay. So as I finish, we say Ashe. Ashe means may it be so. It means the power to manifest. So we acknowledge that we are going to honor God, who will be called in Yoruba. It is the owner of heaven and that. He is called Olodumare. So we will begin with that. Mojuba Olodumare. Ashe. Mojuba Baborisha. Ashe. Mojuba Babo Egungun Emelese Olodumare. Ashe. Ontutu, Onatutu, Yele Tutu. Tutu Loroye, Tutu Egun, Tutu Ori. We have asked for all manifestations of the Creator to be honored, respected, revered in ourselves, and as we experience them in one another. We have asked for a cool road, a cool head, so that we don't have our emotions make our decisions for us, and we're able to strategize for our own freedom. Okay. So we will call on the names of those who made their transition from fleshly to the eternal, pure spirit, right? So I'm going to begin calling our newest ancestor, and I will ask that you will to open the gates of heaven, that you have a smooth transition to the realm of the ancestors for our mother, Gail Wells. Ashe. I call on my grandfather, Henderson Hutchins Sr., who's the only man who could stop a whooping. We call on the spirit of Marcus Garvey, who said that if he gets returned back to his pure form, his spirit form, he will return with tens of thousands of ancestors in the whirlwind. Ashe. We call on those Africans who started our journey on this planet, the first peoples of the world, of which we are the children. And we hold that responsibility close to us, and we accept the responsibility that goes with this time. For all those Africans who fought for us, died for us, who struggled for our freedom, for our liberation in the body, mind, and spirit throughout the world, we say Ashe. I'm going to ask if you would, there is your responsibility to call on the names of your ancestors. And so I'm asking if you would please take a moment to think of someone who taught you how to be better, more whole, more humane, to be the protector, to be the healer, to be the warrior as needed. And I'm going to ask also, that's inside your family and outside of your bloodline, those scholars, those ones who are creative, all those who have enriched our lives and our ways of being so that we can come back into ourselves and our oneness. So I'm going to ask for you to call on names of your ancestors.
Marlene Jasuri.
Ashe.
Mama Simba.
Ashe.
Sister Burke.
Johnny Bryan.
Ashe. Ashe.
Sister Janice Alexander.
Ashe. Ashe. Ashe.
Emma Webster.
Ashe.
Roxy Lindsay.
Ashe. Ashe. Sister Shelton McIntyre. Ashe.
Brady Hill.
Ashe.
Wilson J. Sorman.
Ashe.
Robert Williams.
Ashe. Brother Robbie Williams. Ashe.
Nat Turner.
Ashe.
Marlene Jasuri.
Ashe.
Malcolm X.
Ashe.
Dr. Abdul Muhammad.
Ashe. Ashe.
Bobby Yeager. El Haj Malik.
Yeye Chanel Jean-Marie
Montier Valentin.
Ashe.
Harriet Bethune.
Ashe. Ifasina Rede.
Jamal Davis.
Apollonia Vega. Ashe.
George James.
Ashe.
George Jackson.
Ashe.
John Coltrane.
Ashe.
Harriet Tubman.
Ashe.
Bill Gator.
Ashe.
Jonathan Joseph.
Ashe.
Booker T. Washington.
Ashe.
Nat Turner.
Ashe. Ashe. I'm gonna call pause because I'm running out of water. Okay? When you're the first people, there are so many. With 1,000 tongues, we couldn't call them all. So for all those named and unnamed ancestors, all those known and unknown ancestors who decided to live anyway, despite the atrocities, the abuses, the theft, the torture that we create, and we live, and we give birth, not just to other humans, but to ideas, to concepts, to deep science. We honor you, we thank you by doing the work. We say Ashe, 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 Ashe. Okay. Sister Jennifer. So where'd you go? Oh, okay. So Sister Jennifer is going to come to the front to lead us in the Black National Anthem. Saying lead us because we are all going to sing the Black National Anthem.
Thank you.
And for lift every voice and sing.
But we're going to do this together as a family, right?
That's
All right.
right.
So ready?
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let us resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the faith that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stormy the road we try, bitter the chasing ride, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place which our Father sighed. We have come over a way that with tears have been watered. We have come breathing the path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out of the gloomy past till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright stars is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who have brought us thus far on the way, through the path passed by might, led us into the light, kept us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places our God's word we've met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shattered I leave thy hands, may we forever stand true to our God, true to our native land.
So, Bob, I'm going to ask you to join me. We're going to do a little, oh, I'm sorry. So, we're going to do a little song. I'm going to ask you to join in. The words are not difficult. It is the red, black, and green. The words are the red, black, and green. Do you know what it means? Red, black, and green, do you know what it means? Red, black, and green, do you know what it means? Do you know what it means to be free? And then we'll do kind of a call and response, right? So, and that will be red for the blood, black for the people. Red for the blood, black for the people. Red for the blood, black for the people, green for the land. Okay, so let's start. Y'all just jump in wherever you fit in, okay? Red, black, and green, do you know what it means? Red, black, and green, do
means to be free. Red for the blood, red for the blood. Black for the people, black for the people. Red for the blood, red for the blood. Black for the people, black for the people. Red for the blood, for the blood. Black for the people, black for the people. Green for the land. Ready? Red, black, and green. Do you know what it means? Red, black, and green. Do you know what it means? Red, black, and green. Do you know what it means? Do you know what it means to be free? Red for the blood, black for the people. Red for the blood, black for the people. Red for the blood, black for the people. Green for the land, green for the land. One more time, we got it. Red, black, and green. Do you know what it means? Yes. Red, black, and green. Do you know what it means? Red, black, and green. Do you know what it means? Do you know what it means to be free? Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to ask my brother Lion to come up. I know Lion since he was a teenager, and I'm very glad and grateful to say that he has grown from the inside out. And so now this man that I ask you to hear is the president of our Buffalo chapter of the UNIA. He's going to share with us.
Salute. First of all, I want to welcome everybody and just ask permission from the elders to speak. Is that okay? Race first? I looked around the room and I realized how many teachers I got in the building. But Brother Smalls inspired me to write my first book. So this is a special occasion for me. Okay, so I was asked here to read the ode to the UNIA, This Flag of Mine. So if you would, just join me in a call and response. You with me? Ashe?
Ashe.
Regardless of what is told of it, here's to this flag of mine.
Regardless of what was told of it, here's to this flag of mine.
The red, the black, and the green.
The red, the black, and the green.
Hopes in its future bright Africa has seen.
Hopes in its future black Africa has seen.
Here's to the red of it.
Here's to the red of it.
Great nations shall know of it.
Great nations shall know of it.
In time to come,
in times to come,
red blood shall flow of it.
Red blood shall flow of it.
Historians shall write of it.
Historians shall write of it.
Great flag of mine.
Great flag of mine.
Here's to the black of it.
Here's to the black of it.
400 millions back of it.
400 million back of it.
Whose destiny depends on it.
Whose destiny depends on
the red, black, and green of it.
The red, black, and green of it.
Oh, flag of mine.
Oh, flag of mine.
Here's to the green of it.
Here's to the green of it.
Young men shall dream of it.
Young men shall dream of it.
Face shot in shells of it.
Face shot in shells of it.
Waving so high.
Waving so high.
Here's to the whole of it.
Here's to the whole of it.
Colors brought and pole of it.
Colors brought and pole of it.
Pleased is my soul with it.
Pleased is my soul with it.
Regardless of what is told of it.
Regardless of what is told of it.
Thank God for giving it.
Thank God for giving it.
Great flag of mine.
Great flag of mine.
And I will leave you with the motto of the UNIA ACL: one God.
One God,
one aim, one destiny,
one destiny.
And as always, race first.
The work of God will never be spoiled. Kole ba jeo, ishe olu, ishe kolu, ishe kolu, oluwa.
God.
Yes, kole ba jeo.
Right.
Means God's work will never be spoiled. Reminds me of the old time religion, where despite of conditions, despite of circumstances, may be comparable to times like now. There was an undying faith, an undying understanding that no matter what it looks like, no matter what it may appear, that the Creator, God, the Most High, has us in His hands, and that His work, despite what others may do, will never be spoiled. It's something reassuring, so we just wanted to share that, and my wife is quick for sending me up here to the mic, so thank you.
So there is a poem by Lester Vilt Middleton on the origin of things. Look around you, black child. Your creation is everywhere, though painted, distorted, given new names, they bear your prints just the same. So sharpen your eyes and tune your ears so you'll know what you see, understand what you hear. You were the first to write, the first to read. Humanity sprang from your black seed. For 110,000 years you were here alone. And then the Caucasian man was born. Behind the ice, inside the cold, a chill set in this new man's soul. Other minds have been credited with the things they learned from you. Newton, Pythagoras, Kepler, and Galileo too. So sharpen your eyes and tune your ears so you'll know what you see, understand what you hear. You made the serpent the symbol of the healing arts. And African justice was goddess Ma'at, who weighed herself against the African soul. Truth and justice blindfold. The George Washington Monument, that's yours too. A copy of the African Tekenu, the symbol of the black world's power of creation, the black man's penis in divine procreation. The king of southern Egypt wore the white crown. Keep listening and you'll catch your mouth when you learn that the central government in Egypt was known as the White House. So sharpen your eyes, tune your ears, so you know what you see and understand what you hear. Your god Osiris was restored to life long before Buddha and long before Christ. And today, what you call the Madonna and Child is but the first black family worshipped along the Nile. When you feel that spirit, the Holy Ghost, you need to know it started in Abydos, where God Osiris's body was laid, the Holy Land, where Africans prayed. Minute by minute, hour by hour, as you lose your history, you lose your power. So sharpen your eyes, tune your ears, so you know what you see and understand what you hear. I am humbled and honored that today I get to be in the presence of my mentor, Professor James Small.
Sure.
This humble man, this powerful spirit, who has sacrificed all his life to make sure that we got the information that we need to free ourselves, has death threats on a regular basis, travels all around the world anyway to tell the truth,
Right.
because he knows that the spirit is eternal,
Right.
and even though the body will go anyway, what did you do with the dash? Right? So I'm going to read some of the things he's done, but who he is to me. He is a brother. He is a father. He is a friend. He is a mentor, a teacher, a master teacher. He is a healer. He is a warrior. He is a warrior, a protector of children, of women. No matter what, I'll stand behind this man because I have watched him. He married my husband and I. We celebrate 30 years this year, my husband and I. Right here in Buffalo, yes. And my husband, Baba O, was in Yonkers, and he rented a bus to bring all his friends and family here so that we could marry here, and then I'd go to him. So we don't all start living together before we get married, right? I waited. So let me just tell you a little bit. Baba has been an activist all his life, right? As far as I know. I'm just going to read because I'm getting caught up. So, his in-depth knowledge and thought-provoking and calm delivery are influential elements to help break the programming of misinformation. This is, oh, see, there I go. I'm going to read. Okay. He has studied extensively with Dr. John Henrik Clarke, Dr. Joseph Van Jakenen, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Asa Hilliard, Dr. Wade Nobles, Dr. Amos Wilson, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, Dr. Shossi McIntyre. There are so many. And there are friends, these are friends of his, I know because I met them through him. For 11 years, he served as the principal bodyguard for the late Ella Collins, who was a sister of Malcolm X. He was then the president and organizer of the OAAU, the Afro-American Unity the Organization of Afro-American Unity, and was the imam of Muslim Mosque, Inc., which was founded by Malcolm X. There's just a million things. I'm not going to read them all. I'm not. I was going to, but I'm not. So, I suggest you Google him. I suggest that you get his work, because you can get it. And I ask you to please honor the depth of yourself and him by listening closely to what he shares. His wisdom is deep. And I thank you, Baba. I thank you for sharing with us your true self and for never changing.
I love Ia and my brother, Baba Rob, her beautiful husband, who ran the lecture series with Brother Lionel in Yonkers for about as long as the First World Alliance was running a lecture series up in Harlem. And all of us who would speak at the First World Alliance, our next week would be in Yonkers. And we did that for decades. But we come to events like this one, and I didn't mind Ia reading, but I don't like introductions that much. I mean, you do what you do in your life. You do what things happen. You put that, where I can get some more water. You live here in Buffalo, and it's only about, I'm going to count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 29, 30. It's about 40, probably we'll get to about 45 of us here. Yet, about 40% of Buffalo is black. Most of us came to Buffalo after the 1940s. Matter of fact, in 1930, there was not 500 black people in Buffalo. And we came from the South to all the other northern cities. We were looking for jobs. We were trying to find a way to better our family, find work. The same reason many of the immigrant groups who now come into community are coming. They're looking to figure out how we're going to feed our children, grow our family. But we came from the United States itself, and we had been a part of a nation that has been a terrorist state against African people and still is a terrorist state against African people. Slavery was not a work program. Slavery was a genocide program. Sometimes I see people in the classroom talk about slavery like it was some work agreement we had with somebody that went bad. You know what I'm saying? We had a nice agreement, but it went bad. No, it was war, it still is war, and it's genocide. And the one key thing, if you want to get the theme of anything I talk about, we're at war right now. That war has gone on for thousands of years, not 450, not 500, thousands of years. We who are in the crucible of North America have a great weakness around the question of our identity. Okay? Now, that's not to say the brothers in Jamaica don't have an identity problem, because Jamaica is not an African word. And they say, I'm Jamaican. But they don't say I'm African. But we don't consider that an identity problem, because they did choose an identity. They chose to say we are Jamaicans. What they mean is that we are Africans, but let's keep that part secret. Haitian says we are Haitian, as though being Haitian is not being African. And we keep the fact that Haitian really means Africans in our deep mind a secret. The only group in the Western Hemisphere that put Africa in their identity name has been the African American. We haven't thought of that, and you need to think of that, because it challenges everybody else in the hemisphere with the question of why haven't you put Africa in your identity? Because this is fundamentally a question of identity. We are all Africans. And Africans didn't come in one color. We had brothers in Africa as light as this brother before the slave ship came. We had brothers as light as this brother before the Greeks came, and as black as this brother before the Romans came. See, white folks have caught us up in a discussion that leads us to some bad places because we don't know history. You know, every time I speak, I say, history does what? It erases the mystery. If you don't know history, you're struggling with your enemy's mystery about you. So you need to learn your history to get rid of his mystery, and then that thing you call your black magic, which is the science of the universe, can go to work. Now, Iya poured a libation. Now, Iya means simply mother in the Yoruba tongue. Baba was playing the drum. Baba means father in the Yoruba tongue. Many of us in North America are Yoruba. But guess what? Many of us in North America are Akans. And guess what? Many of us in North America is from the Congo. And guess what? Many of us in North America is from Kenya. And many of us in North America is from Kemet. We represent the largest gene pool of amalgamated African genes of any population on the planet Earth. Think about what that means. You don't have a singular African culture. We have a multiple African culture that's almost universally African. That makes it very appropriate that we call ourselves African Americans. America is a geopolitical place. That's not our race. Africa is our race. Within your race, you have your ethnic community. Some would want to call them tribal. I don't even care if they use the word tribe. It does not offend me. You know, that's his problem if he thinks it's an offensive word. Because if you're old as I am, I mean, like, I'm not old, but going into 79, that's old enough to remember when they tried to make the word African the same thing they made the word nigger into. See, because nigger didn't start out to be a profane word. It started out being the Portuguese and Spanish way of saying black. But these dumb Englishmen, the Irish and the Scots, couldn't pronounce negrito. So they said nagra, which evolved into naga, then nigger in modern terms. But the word only meant black. But they decided to tell us that it was something ugly because they wanted to be something ugly because it was a reference to us. And when I was a child, they made Africa the same way. Nobody wanted to be called Africa when I was a child because they made African profane. And when they want to talk about the highest point of our religion, voodoo, they made voodoo profane. And you don't even know that the word voodoo simply means the essence of God in something. That's all it means. It comes from two languages in Africa, the Fon language in Benin, the Ewe language in Togo, and it means the essence of God. So if you wanted to say the essence of God in man, you said voodoo gadzi, mean the essence of the divine within the human. You wanted to say the essence of God in nature, you said voodoo daha. So he took our sacred word for voodoo and tried to make it profane so we won't relate to the word. You understand what I'm saying? Because that word Negro, before the Portuguese and the Spanish got then corrupted it, came from the Sudan. It's not a European word. Africa is not a European word. And I'm watching Facebook all the time and there's people saying, oh, it came from Leo Africanus. Leo Africanus was after, what, 1800 or so. You know, the word Africa cannot be found in Europe. If it was a European word, find it in Europe, do the etymology of the word, find the roots in Europe, and you cannot, nor Asia. But Africans didn't name themselves by naming a whole continent. That's not the way we named ourselves. That came later in modern time, really, after the 1500s, where you name a whole land mass with a singular name. People named themselves by calling where they were the earth. Simply, their word for where they were was that language's word for earth, for the soil. That's how they named where they were. So the Yoruba would have one word, Ile. The Akan would have another word, Asasiya. But they were both talking about what? The planet Earth. The Hebrew had a word for the earth. Do y'all know what the word for the earth was in Hebrew? When Hebrews were black, back in the day. The word is Adam, the earth. And so that's how we name things. It was the European that decided we're going to name a whole cluster of the planet by a singular name for political purposes. Now, they got that name Africa from the black folks who used to live in Algeria before white folks, and Arab folks came and ran us into Mali and Niger and Mauritania and the other places. And it was a family name, literally an ethnic group name, Afriye. You still find the Afriyes in Ghana among the Ashantis. Because many of the people of Ghana came to Ghana, the modern Ghana we know today, from the ancient Ghana, which was part of Morocco, Mauritania, Algeria, and those southern parts of Libya. That was ancient Ghana and all of what became the ancient Mali kingdom. But we got pushed out by the Muslim population. For us who have been Muslim, you know, we glorify this land because it was brought to us as a liberating instrument by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, may peace be upon him and his great teachings, because I was never in the nation. I grew up under the Muslim Mosque Inc. and became its imam, but Malcolm wouldn't have existed in that context without the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And what the white man has done to us is made us chop ourselves into pieces. So we love Malcolm, but we don't love Elijah, because the white man say Elijah killed Malcolm, but the white man killed Malcolm. Anybody that know me, I've been saying, I didn't wait for Netflix to say this. I've been saying this for the last 50-something years. But they didn't want to listen to a black man. They waited till the white man said, yeah, we killed him. Then they said, oh, we know you killed him. Yeah, we knew he killed them all along. Malcolm told us before he died they were trying to kill him. They had the wherewithal. But what I want to make clear is the question of identity, and then we'll talk about some history, and then we'll talk about some politics, and we talk about what some of the things we got to do here in Buffalo. You know, and some of the mistakes we made. We made some mistakes in trying to find our identity. So the mistakes wasn't unnecessary. It was probably necessary mistakes. I'll tell you what it is now, and we'll come back to it. We abandoned the black church. Big, big mistake. Big mistake. We abandoned Prince Hall Freemason. Big mistake. We abandoned the Elks Club. Big mistake. We abandoned the Eastern Star. Big mistake. We abandoned the daughters of Ruth and the daughters of 10. Big mistakes. Because when you really study our history, during the most progressive and achieving parts of our history, those were the organizations hiding behind the church that was doing the magic. The white man figured that out and went after them. But we didn't know, because they got a new term now, whoever control your narrative, control your politics and your future. Well, they were controlling our narrative. They had all the newspapers, all the radio stations, all the TV shows. So they were telling us what to see, what to hear, what to know, what to think, even about ourselves. And we just had small amounts of people, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Schomburg and others, giving us little slither of what we really look like. Without us, there would be no America. I watched Biden yesterday bragging over in Europe about this great American country. 70-some% of the inventions that make this country technocratically real, we invented it, not them. We invented it. This thing they call democracy was tyranny. Almost everything in this Constitution that makes it humane, excuse me, almost everything that makes it humane, we brought it into the Constitution. We forced them to change their own document to present themselves as a human being with a real democracy to the world, and yet they would not even let us have the fruits of the democracy we forced on them. That's why you got to know history. History will erase the mystery. You got to really, people think history is so mundane, it's so limited, but no. Everybody in this room, I remember years ago I would break out and I said, I'm God having a human experience. They tried to run my ass out of the place. How dare you talk about you God having a human experience? Every teaching the Bible ever taught you that, but they blind you. You couldn't see that. Every teaching Islam taught you that, but they blind you and you couldn't see that. What the white man calls science is African sacred science that he took the spirituality out of and kept the materiality and built his modern technocracy. But if you don't know your history, you get caught up in his mystery. He explains something, oh, Galileo did this and this one did this. No, they didn't. They read some book or document about what the Africans did. Then they went and replicated it and got credit for it. The Dogon was talking about the dog star. What, 1,000 years before they saw it with a microscope in the 50s? But even before that, the Egyptian was the one that first called Sirius A the dog star. And you see it in all of the glyphs when they're talking about cosmology. The story of Christ, when they talk about the star in the east, that's what they're talking about. The Africans were talking about the star Sirius, which the whites don't discover until the 20th century with their microscope or telescope. There are things you need to understand about history. You have a mother and father. They gave birth to you, right? The only thing they had to give birth to you was what? Themselves, right? So when they gave birth to you, they gave birth to themselves, right? That means they can't die because you are them living on, aren't you? Take that backwards and you know you're going to end up with God being the primary ancestor. God gives birth to the first human being, who then gives birth to the rest of us. That's the story of religion they don't want you to comprehend. So they got you worshiping ghosts, dead people, ghosts, without understanding what the relationship between you. The ghosts are important, but you got to understand the relationship between you and the ghosts. If you go to my hotel room that y'all are providing for me tonight, and I thank y'all for providing it to me, and it's a nice, nice room, right, Barbara Rob? As soon as you walk in the door, you're going to see a picture of my mom and my daddy there. You're going to see a glass of water. You're going to see a nice white napkin that I set up there for them, right? I got some nice scented oil, musk oil, that I put on the napkin for them and left the bottle for them, and a couple of beautiful stones sitting there. Because I want their spirit with me everywhere I go. You know why? Because I'm them.
Yes.
When they gave birth to me, when they were still in those bodies, they gave birth to themselves because they knew they were going to one day leave those bodies, and they had to create this body of themselves to carry on themselves. Do you understand me?
Yes, yes, thank you.
If you want to understand the lie they've been putting on you that cause you not even to love one another, and it ain't just any of you. I got it in my own household. I got some children out there, they crazy as a damn bed bug. Smart as a whip in the history because they had to learn the history from me, but they haven't adapted the history to themselves because they went out of my house at 17 and 18 to college. You know, all of us, even in the movement, we work hard. I didn't never have, me and my wife, we've never been on a vacation because we sent everybody to college. Everybody had to get a master's degree. But we didn't realize we were sending them to be deprogrammed from the programming we gave them before they went out of the house. And we didn't have no way to reprogram them when they came back to the house. And I know some of y'all had that experience because your children was up and left you behind, right here in Buffalo and gone. Come see you twice a year for Christmas or Thanksgiving and leave you and go. Because there's something we don't understand. We get mad at that white man who's a Jew, and we have a right to be mad at him because he's done some devilish and evil stuff and is doing something right now. But guess what? He knows how to friggin' organize. He knows how to organize a family. He knows how to organize a community. He knows how to organize a religion and make it work. You know why? Because he's using your blueprint that you no longer use.
That's right.
And you don't use it because you no longer know it, because you don't know your history. You're caught up in his mystery. You see? Even in this town, in the 60s we fought. I was a member of SNCC, I was a member of the NAACP, and the Malcolm's organization all at the same time. I work in the Martin Luther King Democratic Club with Charlie Rangel and them. People say, how you gonna be a black nationalist? And yeah, because they're all the same person. We had to do all these same things in the same community. It wasn't being, one wasn't exclusive. That's the mistake we make. We think if we in the NAACP, we can't help the Black Liberation Army. And that became one of our weaknesses. So half of our brothers languished in prison for 30, 40, 50 years. Young kids. At age 20, 21, 22, was willing to give their life for us, and we let them put them in prison for all those years and couldn't even get them declared prisoners of war, not even by Amnesty International, who claimed to be for freedom. So we see a Sekou Odinga spending nearly 40 years in prison, 38 years in prison. 25 of that 38 years Sekou spent in solitary confinement and came out sane. And got some of the other brothers out after he got out of jail. He passed away a few months back. But how many people know Sekou Odinga? How many? Raise your hand if you know Sekou Odinga. Sekou Odinga is the man that led the squad that broke Assata Shakur out of prison. That's who Sekou Odinga was. Right? Sekou Odinga started out in Malcolm X OAAU Youth Brigade under Max Stanford. How many people know who Max Stanford is? Muhammad Ahmed, the head of RAMS, the Revolutionary Action Movement, once called the Revolutionary Arm of the Muslims. Max still alive. We talk all the time. He's got a little kidney ailment now. He's on dialysis, but he's in Philly. You know, he's an elder in his 80s now. But he was willing to die for you. Like so many thousands of other young black men and women, we don't even know their name because we're busy not understanding our local, most basic histories, let alone our ancient histories. The history of our family. What did Grandma do in North Carolina, South Carolina, Mississippi, and Georgia to better the life of her people before she brought us and he brought us north to try to make a better life for us? What was that move from the south to the north all about? They just moved? They moved and they brought the institutions with them. If they had St. Anne's Baptist Church in Georgetown, South Carolina, they had St. Anne's Baptist Church in Syracuse. You know what I'm saying? Because they brought the institution with them. I'm a Prince Hall Mason. I'm proud of people say, you're a Mason. I'm happy to be a Mason. I just had enough money to pay my dues up. I was behind for a couple of years. I paid it up there. I'm up. I'm good straight right now. But another year. Cornerstone 37, Prince Hall, Grand Lodge, State of New York. Very proud of it. Because Prince Hall and those brothers were some of the earliest black revolutionaries in this country. And we need to learn their history. Richard Allen, Epsilon Jones were Prince Hall Masons. The brothers and sisters who founded the Niagara movement right here, they were Prince Hall Masons. Those who founded the we think Malcolm X invented the Afro-American Unity. No, the Afro-American League was born in Syracuse and in Buffalo in 1892 and had its biggest base right here in Buffalo. That's how they evolved the Niagara movement, which created the NAACP. The NAACP wasn't created by white people. It was created by black activists, most of them Prince Hall Masons. If we know our history, we'll know what we got to rebuild and what we got to fix. Today we got a boule. Y'all know what a boule is, right? Yeah. Raise your hands. Let me see who knows what the boule is. Okay, boule is a black sorority, non-collegiate, right? That was founded before any of the Divine Nine in Philadelphia by some black doctors, lawyers, and dentists, because they felt that they were professional scientists, but all the white organizations kept them out, so they created their own. It is out of this that we get the birth of Alpha Phi Alpha and Alpha Kappa Alpha and the others that would grow, like the Deltas and the others, hoping that they could then take that population that was now entering college and bring them into that bigger population, which W. Du Bois was called the talented 10th. Now, the white man made us think and called that the talented 10th was designed to be against the rest of the masses of black people. That's not what Du Bois was talking about. He was saying that every community have a critical element, and he called that critical intellectual, scientific, technological element the talented 10th. But because we've gotten confused and lost in terms of how we comprehend our history, we see the boule as enemies, and some of the boulets see themselves as antagonists to the masses of black people, and they're in alliance with the corporate structure of white America that oppresses the possibilities of black people in America. I got a nice hotel in Africa. I love Africa, but at this age, I'm not going to move there. If I was like 40 years younger, y'all wouldn't have me speaking here today. I'll be hanging out on the beach down in Cape Coast someplace, right? But some of us will move to Africa, but 90% of us will never leave North America. This is our home. We earned it, we built it, we created, we have a right to it. And we were here. But don't get you confused. See, excuse me, babies, for using that word, but I'm using it for the old folks a little bit, for them to think, right? Because we got some brothers out here talking about the fact that we were, what's the word they use? Aborigine. Well, we Aborigine everywhere in the world. All that means that we were the first person everywhere. There's no place in the world where the African wasn't the first. So what's the big deal that we were the first here? Everybody seemed to know that, except we just finding it out. You know? And then they used the fact that we were here before the slave ships to say the slave ships never came. That's just stupid. But somebody's got an agenda, and that agenda is to divide and conquer the African peoples. I'm African, but I'm an African American. This is my home. Papa buried down there in Fairfield Graveyard. No, Papa's up in Rose Hill Graveyard. His mama's in Fairfield Graveyard. And that's not, I'm from South Carolina. I'm a cold-blooded Geechee, Gullah, off the coast, Georgetown, South Carolina, rice field, sugar cane, eating fish in salt water, and eating fish when you get, we used to go fishing at night, you know, they call that gigging, right? And you put this metal thing on the front of your boat and put a lantern there, and it lights up the water, and you can see to the bottom, and you just pick the fish you want, and you spare the fish, you know? But when it gets cold out there, you can't build no fire, so we used to eat raw fish. So you know, with the Japanese and the sushi, we've been sushi since we got here, you know? But history would tell you all of these things, and you go like, wow. You know the needle, if you go to Mali now, if you go to Nigeria now, if you go to Ghana, there's a certain needle. It's built like this with a third thing in the middle that you fix the nets, the fishing nets. Are you from the continent? No. You ever seen these needles that they do the nets with? Well, then I grew up using those needles. And when I went to West Africa and saw them had the same needles, I said, we'll hop in and get those needles, right? Because they were West Africans. They made their needles when they got here to fix the nets that we carried out just like that. We call it seining. Take the nets and load out the boat, and you make a big U. Then everybody in the community pull. You sing and pull. One pull and you got enough fish for everybody to last all week or 2 weeks or so, you know? And when I got to West Africa and see them doing the same thing, I go like, oh my God. We grew up in Africa. It was just called North America. Because if you're an African and he brings you to North America, the only thing you can do and be in North America is an African in North America. Okay? That ain't gonna never change if you've been here 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 5,000 years. You're just in Africa in North America. So I wanted to get all that said first because I love the brother, and I work with Tariq Nasheed. Tariq's my man. Tariq's done some beautiful work. But he get a little shaky when he started attacking Pan-Africanism. Because all Pan-Africanism means is the unification of African peoples. If we can call ourselves anything we want, if we're willing to unify under one banner for the sake of all the people. So, and I think he's coming around beginning to understand it. Because the point they were trying to make is that a lot of our brothers and sisters who were enslaved in Africa, see, slavery wasn't just in the Western Hemisphere. See, that's the biggest myth told. The entire continent of Africa was enslaved, right? Most of us were enslaved even before we were brought over here in 1492. Matter of fact, the Arab, Muslim, and Turkish slave trade was going on for 1,500 years before 1492. The white Western Christian tapped into the Arab-Turkish trade and his system and mechanism on the ground, which was based on warfare and invasion, raping, killing, murder, and genocide. And he simply expanded that thing and made it a bigger killing zone. But we, the Africans, and even the African in North America is no longer just the African in North America, because my wife's family is from St. Martin and Trinidad. My son's wife is from Jamaica. My other son's wife is from Dominican Republic. So, and many other families is just like mine. We've amalgamated the Caribbean into North America. So we just one African crucible. But each of us have a distinct cultural manifestation. But the African Americans, being the second largest population in the Western Hemisphere, have not amalgamated this culture. Because the other communities are smaller, it was easier to amalgamate their culture, meaning bringing their culture together and making a kind of a singular statement, right? So if I say reggae, everybody understands what reggae is, that's Jamaica. If I say calypso, everybody understands calypso, that's Trinidad. In African American, you got the multiple rhythm and blues, jazz, you know, we have not amalgamated it so that it make one cultural statement. And that's because our enemy has fragmented it, took control and ownership of it to keep us from making that singular statement. Because the only population of Africa in this hemisphere bigger than us is Brazil. And the only population in the world bigger than Brazil is Nigeria. We are actually the 4th or 5th largest African population in the world. And we are the wealthiest as a population. The others may have more wealth in the ground as a nation, but that wealth is owned by the colonialists. The African American last year spent nearly $2 trillion. That was his surplus money. We misspent it. We misspent it because we have not amalgamated culturally. We have not brought our institutions together to give guidance to how our money should be spent. And on that, I always tell people, let's think. Economics, and I always make sure, man, I could be talking about God. I'm going to talk about economic, politics, and culture. Because God ain't coming down here or coming up there or wherever, because God ain't a thing or an anomaly that could come here. Everything together makes up God. Everything together makes up God. You sit at a table made out of plastic. The plastic comes from petroleum. The petroleum is made out of the same thing that charcoal is made out of. Charcoal is made out of the same thing that diamond is made out of. And everything is everything. Every mineral in nature, every element in nature, and every mineral is in your bodies. Everything in the cosmos is in our bodies. all the light that gives us the energy that we call our spirit, and so the spirit is God, comes from the sun, the moon, Mars, Jupiter. We soak up all those lights every day, all day. You all hear me? I'm not trying to get spooky on you now. I'm trying to get real on you. So we get out of the spooky thing where we miss reality. And that's why when people talk about health food and eating right, because you have this shell called a body, a house. It contains something. It contains you. But the white man got you thinking that you and the body is the same thing. We're not the same thing. I live here. This is my house. Diet and exercise is how you keep your house healthy. The kinds of thoughts you hold, the kinds of words you say is how you keep your house healthy. And if you keep the house healthy, you can create the spiritual growth within it that you call the divine to a greater and higher level, and that's how you can do things outside of yourself. All of us do it, we don't realize we do it. Sometimes we kind of catch it and say, oh, you know, I was thinking that, and I was so hard on that, I needed to be there. And it happened, then we move right on without thinking how it happened. What happened? We don't really know how to associate our real self with ourself, because we've been taught and socialized by somebody else controlling the narrative of even what we are as human beings. And that starts with your history being controlled by you. So the African American people, I'm going to try to bring it down so I can get back up in the buffalo. The African American peoples who live in what is called the United States of America, that's what I want the primary focus on, is the largest amalgamation of African gene pool anywhere on the planet Earth. If I went to Trinidad, the majority of the Africans I would meet there are Yorubas. If I went to Haiti, the majority of the Africans I meet there will be Fan people and Ewe people from Benin, Togo. If I went to Jamaica, the majority of African people I meet there are going to be Akan people, Ewe people, mostly from Ghana. But when we come here, this poor cracker from England didn't have many ships in the beginning. So he'd buy some people from the Portuguese, buy some people from the Dutch, buy some people from the Brandenburgs, and then he would bring them here. But those other people were taking us from all over Africa, right? Anybody ever asked the question why we are browner than most other groups in the non-Spanish Americas? It's always been said that we mix with Indians because that was the way to get away with not saying we mix with white folks. Then they said we mix with white folks. But that's not what the reason is at all. Because nobody accounts for the Ethiopian and the Egyptian or the Kemetian people when the Romans and the Greeks had run them out of the Nile Valley by the millions. Where did they go? A lot of them ended up in the United States of America because they were refugees in the Western Sudan, or what we call West Africa. And when the West Africa is being invaded from the north and the east by the Muslims and invaded from the west by the white Christian, and they'll come in and tell you, they say, Chief, I'm coming back next month. I want 50 men, 20 women. You find them, because if you don't find them, I'm taking it from your village. What are you going to do? You ain't got no armies. You ain't got no guns. You're a bunch of farmers, and hunters, and fishermen. These people got horses, swords, guns, and armies. That's why you got to know the history so people can stop lying to you about what happened. Then the elders had to make a decision who was going to go when they came back at the end of the month. And many times they would have to select the young men in their own village, either that or have the village burnt down and the people slaughtered, or they got the refugees who had just came from the east, from the Nile Valley. History will tell you that at the end of the BC, we get invaded by the Hyksos twice, and they stay on us for almost 400 years in the two Hyksos invasion, mostly in the northern part of Egypt. Then there will be another mixed breed group called the Hittites will come on us and stay on us for almost 100 years, almost down halfway through the Nile Valley. Then they would be followed by first a black group called the Persians, but they're going to get invaded by the whites from the Caucasus Mountain and become that Iranian man you see today. And the second invasion from the Persians will crush us. We would have met a group of mixed breed people from Europe called the Greeks, because the Greeks at first were mixed with African people. Many of them would look like we look in this room today. But by the time we turn to the Greeks, who we've been educating and trying to make friends with, and all they great people, Plato and Socrates, they went to school in Africa. By the time we turn to them, they had been taken over by a people. We call them Greeks, but they're not Greeks. We know one of them as Alexander. But they call Alexander the what? The Macedonian. Where's Macedonian? That's the white kingdoms north of Greece that took over Greece just before Greece invaded Kemet. So we asked the mixed group to help us, because they had an army. But by the time that help came, that had been taken over by the white group, led by a youngster named Alexander, who they called the Great. But Alexander, see why you got to study history. If you read history, you'll find that Alexander wasn't white either. That's why they paint him so white. How many people know where he was killed? How many people know why he was killed? See, that's why history will take away the mystery, right? Alexander marries a black woman, right, from Egypt. They have a son. The white Greeks, who are now the Macedonians, who he's leading, because his father Philip was a Macedonian, but his mother was a mixed race woman from Greece. They murdered Alexander. He was protected by, what's the guy's name? Arius, I think they call him. Was it Arius? It'll come to me. It's in Dr. Asa Hilliard's book. But Alexander, in a drunken stupor one night, kills this guy, who was his main bodyguard, who was protecting him from the rest of these plotters and schemers. And in his death, they write, the white people write, he says to them, "Fool that you are, you've killed your mother's son." If you've killed your mother's son, who have you killed? Your brother. Your brother. And it is known to history that the man he killed is a black man. So if this black man is his mother's son, what does that make Alexander the Great? So-called. So they murder him in what is now Persia, Western Persia. What's the next thing they do? Murder his black wife and murder his black son. That's why you got to read history. Because that's when the white people is taking over Africa. This is when the takeover began, not 1492. This is in AD. Christ hasn't come yet. Once I denied Christ completely, but you can't deny Christ completely because revolutionaries in the stead of Christ came all the time. And during the time period by the Romans, and here's how the Romans get there. That's why I got to study history. When the Hebrew Israelites are still in the land, before these Khazars, whites, took over our land called the so-called Middle East, Northeast Africa, they had a family called the Maccabees. Anyone have read about the Maccabees in their studies? This was the last black stand against white supremacy in the Hebrew tradition. And the Maccabee that you really want to learn about is the brother called Judah. There's Judah Maccabee. He was a revolutionary like a Che Guevara, right? Guerrilla war fighter. And so the Greeks now, the white Greeks, have killed Alexander. They've taken over northern Africa, northeast Africa, and that's how you get the whole Cleopatra story. Cleopatra was not a single person. Cleopatra is a title, not the name of anybody. There were 13 Cleopatras. It is, I think, the 13th or the 12th Cleopatra that you usually see people making a movie about. By then, yes, she had gone back to black. Because the Greeks weren't importing Greeks to have sex with. They were having it with our women who they had captured, like they did everywhere else they went. That's why you got to study history to get rid of the mystery. And so you have Alexander's remnants. After they kill Alexander, they divide up the kingdom, right? And so the Greeks, though, start oppressing the Hebrew Israelite population who makes up much of that area. by this time. So they fight back. The Greeks are not calling white history Greeks anymore. This is how they fool you. They call them the Hellenists, the Hellenistic. But they don't tell you who the hell these Hellenistics are. These are the next generation of the Greeks who have mated with our people through rape, pillage, and plunder, who now run the land, right? And so they are oppressing the Hebrew Israelites, and they come and make them pay taxes. And when they resist them, they roll up on the Hebrews, usually on the Sabbath, when we praying. And one day, after they killed Brother Judah's father, he says, we're going to pretend to be praying. And when they roll up in here on this Sabbath, we're going to kick their behinds. And so Judas Maccabee leads a resistance war against the Greek settlers, who were like the white Americans are to us today, right? And he was doing a good job. After his death, his brother, who was a weaker brother named Jonathan, takes over. Jonathan Maccabee reaches out to this new power to come help deal with the Greeks. Guess who the new power is? The Romans. Of course, the Romans come in and go like, these dudes ain't got no power. We're going to take this whole thing for ourselves. That's the same thing the Greeks had done. So the Romans come in and help them crush the Greeks. And the people you call Arabs today, those are the Greeks. And the Persians. And the Romans, mixed with some black blood. You call them Arabs. They won't tell you who they really are, but that's who they are. That amalgamation, right? And so the Romans take over, and the Romans in power until there's multiple revolutionaries, but there was one brother, the one they end up calling Jesus and making the mythical story about. Some of the story is mythical and some of the story is historical. You have to read and study to tell the myth from the reality. Anybody know, I work on a TV show right now, it's called The Godfather of Harlem. You can't tell the difference. The way I got them pushing this stuff, you can't tell the difference between the history and the fake. Because I've made them marry it. Everybody don't like it, but we married it, so you don't know whether Bumpy Johnson is a gangster or a black businessman. Right. His best friend is Malcolm X and Adam Clayton Powell, which was historically true. Well, this is what's occurring to us in the Middle East at that time. There ain't no 1492 yet. Okay, there's no Muslim yet. You get young revolutionaries trying to overthrow the Romans, and in that overthrow, they create a theology based on Kemetic mythology that you call Christianity. Let me say that again now. They create men are killed. The one we know more about is the one they call Jesus the Christ. But remember, the word J wasn't even in their language until the 16th century, so he wasn't called Jesus back then. Some people said he was called, they have multiple names. I don't know which one is true. But we know there's enough evidence in history from the writer Pliny the Younger, Pliny the Elder. These are writers who's writing back at that time. Josephus, was the Roman writer who travels all through Africa at that time. But the people... Diodorus, yes. You've been reading, Bubba. That's why you got to be on top of this history. Diodorus Silicus. And they're writing about these events, so we know some of these things are happening. So let me just drop the story, because I know all of us in here was raised in the Christian church. Let me run some story just to show you how myth and reality work. Right in front of your face, you don't pay attention because you don't know history, right? You're reading the Bible, right? Yeah. There's supposed to be the Hebrew Israelite have a prophecy that says one day Moshe will come, the Messiah will come, a revolutionary will come, a Savior will come and free us. But there's certain things that will let you recognize the Savior. When he comes, people will cry, Hosanna, Hosanna, and it will spread palm leaves on the ground, like what they call today, they call that the red carpet, right? And he'd be riding on a donkey, right? And so all these symbols in the Bible is fulfilled with the brother name that we call Jesus, right? But you got to listen well. Now, they said a guy named Judas betrayed him. How much time? I got all the time I want? Good. I'm going to take my time. I got that. But I'm saying this because I want the population I'm talking to identify with yourself and me in history, right? This brother, after he comes to them with some information they hadn't heard before, that simplify how they should go against the Roman. Remember, Rome is dominating Jerusalem at this time. The Roman is dominating that North Africa and Northeast Africa. So at the time of Christ, people are fighting back. If you study history, the man that had the largest revolutionary group, called the Zealots, anybody know his name? Judas Iscariot. The man they say betrayed Jesus, but there's nothing in the history to show that that man betrayed Jesus. All right? It is in their mythology they say he betrayed him. But it was his revolutionary group that was at the vanguard of the movement that the guy we call Christ was leading. But there was a young rebel like a Che Guevara dude, right? So we know Che Guevara, he's with Fidel, right? You know what this young cat name was? Barabbas. Right? Now remember, one day Jesus rolled up in the town according to the prophecy on the donkey with the thing we call it Good Friday. But he goes in the temple and he kicks butt and he runs everybody out and he turns over the table and he flogs people. Don't sound nonviolent to me. Sound like he whipped the hell out of a bunch of people in there that day, right? This is Jesus, according to the Bible. I'm not making this up. It's in your book. Read it. But something happens that day. Remember, when you go into the temple, that's tantamount to going into Wall Street and the big banks downtown New York. That's where he went. And there was no way he's going to do that to the Roman and just walk away. So they arrested somebody. They arrested a man. And this man's name is Barabbas. Now Jesus gets away. He's sitting up in the garden, cooling it out, him and his boys, right? The centurions come up to the garden. We know he ain't nonviolent, because what does Paul do when they roll up on him in the garden? He breaks out a sword and cut the dude's ears off. That don't sound nonviolent to me, does it? Right? That's his main man. They sound like revolutionary brothers to me in a fight. But a crisis has occurred. And somebody came to Jesus and said, yo, bro, let me have a word with you. He said, now you get your butt down to that Roman prison and you get my boy up out of there. That person was his wife, Mary Magdalene. Oh yeah, that's why the white man can make a movie, but y'all wait till the white man, if you listen to me 30 years ago, I'll tell you Magdalene was his wife. And all you gotta do is read the Bible and read the parable on the wedding feast, and you see the only person that could have been getting married according to Hebrew tradition and what they say in the wedding feast is Jesus. Because he had a brother named James and a sister named Sarah and a mother named Mary, and they were serving the wedding party. In Hebrew tradition, only the family of the bride can serve the wedding party. Right? Then they said they ran out of wine and had to wait for Jesus to come because Jesus came and turned the water to wine. Well, in Hebrew tradition, only the bride could bring wine to the wedding. So who's getting married? James wasn't getting married because he was his mom and his sister serving the party. The only one left is Jesus. Now, anybody in here got your wife here? Would you like it if I came and took off her shoes and took some olive oil and started caressing her feet? Now, Mary is doing that to Jesus. So that is a very, what's the word? Affectionate thing to be doing. Only a wife in that culture would be doing that to a man. All right? So Mary shows up and says, look, you had your fun in that temple, you done beat up the mother dudes and all that, you sitting up here in the garden talking to your boys with your swords guarding you, get my child out of jail. So Jesus and Judas cook up a scheme that Judas would go and sell him out. They will arrest Jesus, and they let who go? The one the Bible says, the murderer named Barabbas. How do you know this is his son? Small y, you say that because it's simple. Study basic Hebrew. What does bar mean? Son of. What does Rabbis mean? Lord. The son of the Lord was arrested. He turns himself in, Barabbas is released. But Jesus is the priest. He's a man of a high order. He's Prince Hall 33. You know, he's Shrine of Ptah 360. So he goes to the cross. But not a white man helps him. According even to the white man who makes Jesus a white man, he had to make sure that the burden of the cross is carried by what? A black man, right? So he's trying to give you a little bit of something without telling you the whole truth, right? Jesus gets on the cross. It's Friday. Friday is what? Shabbat. That means at 4 o'clock, everything's got to cut because it's Sabbath, right? They don't get to the cross according to their own stuff in the Bible until around 2:30, 3 o'clock. So they got to get them down there really quick. And the way you die from the cross is through asphyxiation, with your arms stretched and when your body sinks down, the muscles in your armpit, shoulders suffocate you, squeeze your neck to death. It takes you about a week to die like that. So there's some vicious people. So they ain't got time for all of that. So they do what? They nail Jesus for across his foot. He gets one nail. The other two dudes, they break their legs. Why do they break their legs? Because they got to take them down off the cross before they die. They don't want them to go nowhere. But there ain't nothing in that book that said they break Jesus' leg, do they? They only break the legs of the two thieves, don't they? Then people say, oh, Brother Small, I got you now. So, they stabbed him in the side, so we know he was dead. In your book, they said he did what? He bled. Is there any nurses in the room? Any doctors, physician? Well, check with your physician and check with the nurses, And when you bleed blood and water, when your metabolism is slowed down so much, your brain barely needs any oxygen to live. And that's when you bleed blood and water, right? So Jesus, before they hit him with the spear, says, I thirst. And they said they gave him gall and vinegar. Well, gall is the Hebrew word for pure poppy juice. He was high as a kite. Right? The vinegar was fermented apple juice. So they gave him the medicine. They hit him with the sword. They thought he was gone. But he knew he wasn't gone because he wasn't going to bleed to death. And in the book, they say blood and water. Ask any physician, under what conditions do you bleed blood and water? And they'll tell you. I'm just telling you this because, see, the demon put the truth right in front of you, but he tells enough lie and blocks you from your own truth that you don't even see the real truth even when he puts it in front of you. And we cast it away. I did it. I grew up in St. Anne's Baptist Church. Papa was a preacher. I knew the Bible like this when I was a baby. And I turned away at 17. Went off into the Rig Veda, the Upanishad, and the Vedic hymns, and Buddha, and all of that stuff, and then to Islam, and then I go like, ain't none of this stuff. All of it is ours, but none of it is really where we landed. And that's when I end up in West Africa, in Devudu, and Yoruba, and Akana. So where we landed with the science, the highest form of the science. The science of what? Of understanding cosmology and ecology and your place in it. That's what it is. And that's what he keeps you from understanding. I call it African sacred science rather than spirituality, because spirituality, they could play with that little thing. But it's the sacred science, the science of the universe itself, the science of nature itself, the science of the human being a product both of the universe and nature, and how we should relate. Nobody in this room will ever die. You will shed these bodies, but that spirit, that light, that fire that's in you that you call the spirit, will just find another nice body. And in every African tradition, they tell you how this is done. So I'm saying all of that because I'm trying to get you to study your history again. It can be boring sometimes and mundane sometimes. But you remember Dr. Martin Luther King? I didn't even like Dr. King. And I'll tell you, but the day he got shot, I danced. That's how ignorant I was about who the man was. I was a Malcolm X man. I carried a M1 carbine damn near every day, D57, 45. I ain't shot nobody. Had all them guns. I was trying to shoot somebody though. I got arrested a few times and was blessed that there was a force greater than me that said, fool, I'm going to show you some light and I'm going to let you go. I've been on my knees behind the gas station with the pistol in my mouth from the LA cops. Anybody who know LA and you know Orange County, 77 precinct? Very few of us come back from there. I was blessed to come back from there because the feds saved me. I didn't know why the feds were saving me. I would find that out weeks later because Yasser Arafat, when I was the imam, I was at that moment the imam. I was 22 years old. But I housed El Fatah's Woman Brigade. You know who El Fatah was? That's the organization that preceded the PLO. So I housed the El Fatah Women's Brigade in North America. But I didn't know I was appreciated until I found out it was Yasser Arafat that made that call to Washington and saved Ella and my life that night in LA. But in those things, you begin to realize you need to stop and back up. Let me tell you about Dr. King, because I didn't mean to go by that too fast. I didn't understand Dr. King. I thought he was a sellout. I thought he was a traitor. And even the people who defended him didn't know whether he was a sellout or a traitor. They just defended him because it was safer to do that because white folks liked him. Isn't that they cared that much for him, otherwise they would have been there catching that bullet for him, and they weren't there. Anybody who I did bodyguard for, I never lost a person. I did it for a lot of people, and even had attempts in my own life, because you got to be willing to die for what you believe in. Now, if you get lucky like me and live, then you have to look around and figure out what you're going to do next. Then you decide I better learn something and teach my people something. But then I learned who Martin Luther King was. Start reading the writings of Dr. Martin Luther King. Start reading the speeches, because they caught us again, right, with the narrative. They gave us the speech in Washington. They didn't even give us the speech in Washington. They gave us the last paragraph of the speech in Washington, which was not even a written part of the speech, okay? And then they pushed that narrative to define Dr. King, and even people like me in the movement, we fell for it. But when you read Dr. King, when you study Dr. Martin Luther King, he was much more learned than Malcolm was. That's not to take anything away from Malcolm. Malcolm was a bad dude, okay? But you got to understand the reality. Martin Luther King, when Kwame Nkrumah was declaring freedom in Ghana, Martin Luther King was about 3 people away from him, along with Adam Clayton Powell, Ralph Bunche, and a few others. And when he came back from Ghana that year, what's this, 57? He wrote, and you can go online and look it up, he wrote a speech. And the speech is called The Birth of a New Nation. Not to be confused with the white movie attacking black people, The Birth of a Nation. Dr. Martin Luther King's speech, after returning from Kwame Nkrumah's inauguration, wrote a speech called The Birth of a Nation. It will blow your mind. This is before the March on Washington. And then I challenge you to listen to his last speech the night before he died. Now, even in that, they play with the narrative again. They give us 2-liners. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord, and I fear no man. And they leave it right there. But they do not tell you what preceded that sentence. And when you see that, you realize what they were doing and why they could go into church. 300 or 400 black people storm. 1,000 Klan and sheriff deputies, nobody outside with their guns, daring them to come out. And they'd sing, and they'd pray, and they'd sing, and they'd pray, and they'd open that door and walk out in the middle of all those guns, and them crackers step back. What had they done? You know, come out singing songs like, "Oh, I'm a-leaning on the Lord who died on Galilee." And they would sing those songs over and over, because what they were doing was building up that God energy spirit in themselves. Before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave, go home to my God, and I'll be free. Oh, freedom, freedom over me. And those words infused the divine courage that when they walked out of the doors of those churches, nobody touched them. That's African. You don't find that behavior no place except on the continent of Africa. White folks call it voodoo. But black folks call it what it was. We just being we. Doing we. Using the science that we know. Because I used to think English was not a suitable language. It isn't suitable for much except what you make it to be suitable for. And the Africans made English suitable for what we wanted to say to one another. We make English work for us. Let nobody fool you. And as long as we've been here, we still don't speak English like they do we? No. 400, 500 years later, we still talk our talk the way we talk our talk. We don't talk they talk, right? Because we made English do for us, both in terms of tone and vibration, and repetition that we needed to do for us so that we will get the thought that we call the message over to the next black person. And that's what language should do. You'll understand me. I'm trying to teach you some serious voodoo here now on the down low, right? So the point I'm making is you're more powerful than you have any idea that you are. If you study your history, you in this North America, you will see that you're more powerful than you think you are. But somebody told you weren't powerful, so then you start saying, whoa, how weak I am. You're one of the most powerful people in the world. We had to grow up in the white man house. Think of it now. If you were in Jamaica, you had a couple of thousand British soldiers, but you had a couple million Africans. If you're in Haiti, you got a couple million Africans, and you got a couple thousand French soldiers. All of those places, and on the continent of Africa, the black people are the majority. In America, we are in the biggest White House ever built in the world, and we are the minority, and we kick their butts. We kicked their butts over and over. Now, they've gotten the upper hand on us. We beat them so bad in the 50s and the 60s, they declared chemical warfare on us. They called it crack. That was the CIA and the DEA and the government in the United States. All right? Crack was a weapon of war that was used against our community. And we came up with a way to fight back. The youngsters came up with something called rap. They didn't call it hip-hop in the beginning. White folks helped them call it hip-hop. In the beginning, they were just rapping. Using their voices, using their vocal cord to tell their story. And at first, the white man laughed. Then they looked and saw the black people listening to them. So they said, okay, let's go in with our dope and our money, and we're going to buy leadership and put them in place, the Diddy's and the others. And I'm not a Diddy fan, and nobody will ever make me be a Diddy fan. I wasn't a Diddy fan before this stuff came out, because I saw too many people get destroyed by psychological warfare. There were some beautiful rappers and artists out in this world who had some beautiful lyrics that would lift our people up, but they weren't the one that they gave the money to. They weren't the one that used the media to big up. Okay? The sisters who were singing First Ever I Saw Your Face. They didn't want to hear that song. They want to like take it all off and shake it all out and we give you all the money you need. And so the black youth is looking for symbols. They're looking for role models that have some status, some stature, and possibility for them to get out of poverty. And the enemy said, we can give them to you straight up and straight away. And here's how we're going to do it. And if anybody get down and know serious and study back, there was a trial, and then I'm going to come back to Buffalo. There's a man named Oliver North. He was a colonel in the U.S. Army. And there was a general named General Secord. And they were running the dope out of Central America to Arkansas. And the governor of Arkansas was a man named Bill Clinton, who was allowing the dope to land in Arkansas. And then he gets away with telling you he's the first black president. And he gonna put on some dark shades and blow a saxophone, and we start screaming like idiots. When that Bill Clinton was a part of that whole operation. It wasn't just Freeway Rick. He's lucky he lived to tell us the story, otherwise we wouldn't have gotten the story as quickly as we got the story that it was the government running the crack operation in America. You understand? They created the chemical. First they went after their own children. Let's back up a minute. How did they go after their own children when their children challenged the system with the thing against the Vietnam War? They went after their own children by creating a chemical called LSD and attacked their own babies, attacked and killed their own children. And when we rose up after the war, they came at us with another chemical substance called crack. But you had to hit us both physically and spiritually, and that's where the music came in. They took over our music genre. They always had. We never controlled music in America. We sang, we performed. There's a document, you can find it online, it's called the Columbia Record Report. The Columbia Records paid Harvard University in 1957 to do a study on soul music and rhythm and blues and on our music, on how to control it and how to control the artists. That study showed them that the way you do this is you control distribution. Give them the contract. You might want to even give them masters if you want to, but you control distribution. That's what Harvard's people concluded. They kept that report hidden until a few years ago, from 1957. But you can now find it online. Some guy wrote a book about it, some white researcher. Okay, it's called the Columbia Report. Just put Harvard University, Columbia Music Study on Black Music. When they told the white music industry how to control the black artists from top to bottom. So the kids would come in, beautiful talents, powerful people, all this dream, all the spirit coming out of their head, and they would say, wonderful. They give you the best band, the best orchestra, the best studio. The next thing you know, you're riding in a limousine, you got the champagne, you got the women, you got the hotel room, and then you just waiting for that record to drop, and you get that golden album and it drop, boom, you said, now I got some money, I can go build a house for mama, I can go help daddy out here, I can help my sisters out, and you realize you're running a deficit because all that stuff they were giving you was on credit, right? And the only one that made any money off of your golden album was them. And you never get caught up unless you're able to break away. And if you break too much, they murder you like they do Prince. They murder you like they did Sam Cooke. They murder you like they did the Jackson young man, Michael, and others that we probably don't even know their names. You know? So it's worth studying your history, the history of music in America, black music in America. And a lot of books have been written today because they figure we're not going to study it. And you can see they declared war on our psyche with our music. And they declared war on our body. First starting with the heroin, and then the crack cocaine was proved to be the best weapon they ever came up to. But something happened. Our kids, after the crack cocaine, our kids broke away. His kids is the one hooked on oxycodone and this codone and all. Right now, they're doing like 7 out of 10 of their kids are hooked on drugs. So you're not a criminal anymore now. You're sick. Even the police carry something to revive you if you overdose. Yeah.
Some Narcan.
So, and they caught up some new ones. But the point I'm making is that we're at war. You in Buffalo, you're at war. You're multiple organizations here today with different philosophies and different histories. But if you study your history, you'll find that your history is not as different as you think. Many brothers and sisters who are Garveyites don't think about Booker T. Washington, which is absurd. Booker T. Washington is the one who brought Marcus Garvey to America. Booker T. Washington used the forces of his Tuskegee machine to stop the federal government from passing a law to bar black Caribbean people and Africans from coming to this country. Booker T. Washington did that. Booker T. Washington got on a boat, financed himself and W. Du Bois, and went to England to set up the Pan-African Conference, and came back to America and promoted the publicity on the conference. But because he didn't go and speak at the conference, people said he was a traitor. That's because they didn't know if he had not done the work he did, Du Bois wouldn't have had a conference. History will erase the mystery. How many people know where Booker T. Washington died? You probably heard me say it once, right? But isn't that a shame? One of our greatest leaders in the world, we don't know when he died. Booker T. Washington died on a train in Baltimore Station on the way from New York after having been poisoned in a meeting that he came to with a bunch of white folks and some other black folks to settle the rift between him and Monroe Trotter out of Boston here in New York City. And they said they won't admit that he was poisoned. They said he had gout. You don't die from gout like that. When he realized he was going to die, he sent a telegram and asked his wife and his aide to come and get him. And they came and got him because he said, if I got to die, let me die in my Tuskegee. He never made it to his Tuskegee. Study your history. Somebody been lying to you about the most basic stuff. Right? The most basic stuff. The Honorable Messiah Marcus Garvey, according to the great Dr. Tony Martin, who wrote much of the books on his life and his biography, said, I came to America to implement the Tuskegee model. UNIA is the Tuskegee model. That's what the Honorable Messiah Garvey said out of his own mouth. Who was the number 2 person in the Garvey, this is a history lesson to you, organization when he went to prison? Raise your hand.
Henrietta Davis.
You've been listening to me, haven't you, boy? I love you, sir. That's my man right there. Our sister named Henrietta Benton Davis, who was from Washington, D.C. She was a protege of Frederick Douglass. She was a school teacher and an actress. You know, they call it an elocutionist back in the day. When he went to prison, Henrietta took over as the acting president of UNIA. Now, as brothers usually do, they tried to oust the sister, but she wouldn't play in it. And so they weren't able to do it. And even when Garvey came home, some of the brothers tried to say she was going against you while you were inside. But she went with Garvey when he got deported to Jamaica. She would leave him in Jamaica after a couple of years and come back and join the Philadelphia UNIA, which had broken away from the larger body, because there were rifts in the body based on the same divisive stuff we got going on now between the brothers from Jamaica and the brothers from North America. And there was one brother from North America that ran against Garvey in the election right after he got out of prison. He lost by only a few votes, but he was assassinated in New Orleans shortly after the election. History will erase the mystery. There are things you need to know about your movement. You understand? We know that the Nation of Islam was one of the first major Muslim movement in America, thanks to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X. But there were 2 major Muslim movement, black Muslim movement before that movement. One was the Moorish Science Temple under the leadership of Noble Drew Ali, and the other one always shocked black people when I tell them. It was the Baha'i movement, which was a Shia movement, founded in New York in 1910 by a dude named Baha'u'llah, who was a Turkish brother. But Baha'i morphed into this multi-theological kind of thing that we see today, but that's not how Baha'i started out. It was a rebellion that started in Saudi Arabia and ended up in Turkey. And he got deported from Turkey after he got out of prison. His father, I think, died in prison, and he rekindled the movement with black folks. So white folks wouldn't end up under Islam in 1910. You know? And you need to study these movements. Where did Noble Drew Ali die? He was one of your great leaders. You're supposed to know that. He started the Moorish Science Temple of North America. He died in Detroit. Shot to death in the streets of Detroit. No one ever arrested for his assassination. We should know that. 2 weeks before he was assassinated, his number 2 person was assassinated. And though he was out of town during that assassination, when he came back home, the police arrested him, right, and accused him of doing it. And then he was assassinated. Out of the dust of the UNIA and the Moorish Science Temple rose a much more powerful movement. What's the name of that movement? It's called the Lost Found Nation of Islam in the West, that you call the Black Muslims. But if you study history, you'll see that all this stuff is linked up. And you can go back. Booker T. Washington had a conference of the Negro world before Du Bois had his Pan-African conference at Tuskegee. And he had people from all over the Caribbean, Central South America, and Africa. The man who led the Malawian revolutionary movement was there. The brothers who ended up forming the ANC in South Africa was there. There were Ghanaians there. There was people from Nigeria there. There were people from the British bloc, Garvey. He couldn't come, but 10 Jamaicans did come to that conference. And nobody calls it a conference. But you need to know the conference happened. Tyene Wright wrote a book, Booker T. Washington, the Pan-Africanist. Get that book. And look at her bibliography. Dr. Tyene Wright, Booker T. Washington, the Pan-Africanist. History will erase the mystery. Now let's come to Buffalo so I can bring this thing in. You already know you're God having a human experience. When your parents gave birth to you, they gave birth to themselves. And when your grandparents gave birth to the two parents, the four of them gave birth to themselves. And when your 8 great-parents gave birth to the 4 grandparents, they gave birth to themselves. So who are you? You're the culmination of all of those people. So did they die? How could they die when you are they going forward? Understand African culture, and you'll understand that intrinsically, and you'll lose this fear of death, and you'll begin to live your life with more purpose. You understand? That's African culture. But what we need to think about up here in Buffalo, we got a lot of black youth going to college, more than we've ever had, thank God. But we got a lot of black youth that's not going to college, and the high schools are not training them for anything else except the penal system. What are we going to do about that population? So we need to think in terms of some foundational stuff. That everything we do in every organization we got must include economic, politics, culture, and spirituality. Those 4 elements. Economics, politics, culture, spirituality. Economics is to harvest the wealth in your environment. What is the wealth in the environment here in Buffalo? That is not gold, it's not diamond, it's not crude oil. What is it? It is the tax revenue that they take from you, take to Washington. Washington sends back to Albany. Albany sends back to Buffalo, and everybody gets a piece of it except you. That's the first piece of your wealth. The next piece of wealth to be harvested in Buffalo is real estate. You've got to buy and control more real estate, because that's the only way you can deal in what is called economics. Politics is your management system. It allows you to manage your economic endeavors. Your politics then mean you must control, right, the people who make decisions on what revenue goes to what community. Somebody make a decision on what money comes to the center. Who's making that decision? Somebody makes a decision about how many garbage trucks will come to your community. Somebody makes a decision about how many police patrol car works your community. Somebody makes that decision. That's a political decision. So you've got to learn to get control of politics. Politics manages your economics. Understand? And so the governor made a decision yesterday on this MTA question of charging people all this money, and people are having a titty fit over it right now. I think she made the right decision, because I thought it was a bad decision to rob the people of New York and New Jersey to start with. We still don't know what the MTA do with the money we do give them, because we're not controlling the politics where we live. Politics manage your economics. Politics determine who's going to lead your school board. Politics determine who's going to lead your land distribution board. Politics determine what type of businesses and what code governs what businesses that's built in your community. If you're not there, somebody is making all these decisions for you. To get there, though, we must participate in the electoral politics. And that's where a lot of us get mental blindness. Our people fought very hard to learn how to master votes, get the right to vote, and we have not done the job of educating us why we should vote and how we should use the vote. If I don't like the candidate, be he black or not, that's in office, let me then run a candidate that I like. But you got to be organized to do that. You got enough people in this room to determine who your city council is going to be. If black people is 40%, they say 37, then they tell us they never really do a full census of us. So I say 40 to 43% of Buffalo. We can determine any election in Buffalo for any office in any community. with that kind of numbers. But you can't make that determination if you don't educate yourself politically on how to use the ballot. Learn the voting rules of the state. Learn how to get someone on a ballot. Learn how to qualify to run for an office. Learn how to do petitioning for an office. Those are the things you must master. If you don't master the environment you're in, somebody else would master you in that environment, and that's what's being done. Then there is culture. Now, culture, we think is music and dancing and movies and that sort of thing. Those are tools of culture. They're not culture. None of it is culture unto itself. Those are tools of culture. Culture is the idea that the music is trying to express. It is the value system. It is the interests. It is the principles that your ancestors have set in stone with their blood for you to learn and to remember yesterday. Culture is everything you do, the food you eat, the clothes you wear. But we wear clothes we don't make. That's not a very cultural thing to do. No disrespect, sisters, but if I was young, anybody who's wearing hair that didn't come from your scalp, take it off, sell it back to the Asian community. Tell them try selling it to themselves. They don't buy other people's hair. They don't put false extensions on their hair to imitate our enemy. They're the enemy through the hair back. We don't have hair to do that with. I had to get my granddaughter, she rolled up in my car the other day when I pick her, because I pick her from school every day. And she got, and my baby's hair is long, just braided on up, right? I grew up in South Carolina with corn braiding and braiding happening in the house every day. My daughter's too lazy to braid that baby's hair. So I got somebody putting some extension. The girl got hair this long, and you putting what the hell are you putting an extension on her hair for? I hope she had a tape, because you know I love her, but they know I'm straight ahead with the truth. That is a cultural statement that is saying that the other person's aesthetics is more valuable to you than your ancestors' aesthetic. Understand that now. That's some deep psychological stuff. I'm saying the one who raped and murdered Grandma, and the ones who approved the rape and murder and the robbery, aesthetics is more significant to me as a being than Grandma's. Wow. What's that saying about your love for self? Brothers, y'all ain't off the hook either. I remember the day we used to, when I was growing up, Concoline was out because it was too hot. Some people still used it. But we used to use a pomade called Tuxedo. Come on now, brothers. Show me how many of y'all use that Tuxedo. That Tuxedo make you slick as Nick, right? You slicked it down and comb all that wax out. You went out looking like little white boy Charlie. Aesthetically. Because we hated our African aesthetics. We hated the aesthetics of Grandpa. So we wanted the aesthetics of the persons who murdered Grandpa, and did not understand what that was psychologically doing to our thought construct when it came to how we create the things that help to free ourselves with our minds, because it all starts here, in your minds. So culture is important. So if I'm going to have a play, let the play tell a story. See me with all these beads? They look kind of heavy, right? I'm beaded down. And they call us, in the Spanish word, they say ileques. And these are made in Brazil. Yeah, para candomblé. Cost me a lot of money, too. They charge too much for the beads. I'm on all the Brazilian beads. But this one represents Obatala. This is a tradition as advanced by the Yoruba. The Yorubas are people that live in West Africa, with the majority of them living in Nigeria, but they live all over West Africa. They're actually the largest ethnic nation in West Africa, right? And so they have an interpretation of cosmology and of ecology, and that's what these beads represent. So Obatala represents the creator, an aspect of the creation. And there's a whole story I won't go into. The Obatala was sent down here after God sent some other folks down to get the earth straight, to get the plants straight and so forth. Then he sent Obatala to model man. But the ones who came down and planted the palm tree had came ahead of Obatala. So Obatala figured out how to make some palm wine. So while he was modeling man, he's having a good job, and God is very pleased over Damari. But then Obatala got a little high. And he started making some people who was crippled and so forth and others. So they says, anyone who have any of the ailments of distortions, they are Obatala's children. But it's a metaphor trying to tell us something about the process of creation. And I'm not going to go too deep, but I'm going to tell you a few others so you can listen. This one everybody loves. This one is called Ogun, the green and the black. They say Ogun is the god of war. So look at people coming in, that means we're supposed to be moving up, right? Timekeeper, give me the time. What time are we on?
It is 6:07.
Okay, what time are we supposed to leave?
7 o'clock outside the building.
Okay.
This is Muhammad School of Music. They're celebrating their 25th anniversary, so from the Nation of Islam.
Oh, those
I recognize the 25 years worth of use.
Oh, well, those are my peoples right there. Okay. Salam alaikum to everybody. So Ogun, the god of iron, the god of wars. People like Ogun. And then this is Eshu Legba. Most people don't like Eshu Legba very much. This is the opening of the way, and he's also the guardian of the crossroads. And then this one, nobody likes, very few people wear it except me. This is called Babaluaye. I remember the Lucy, I have loved Lucy show, her husband always saying this about, he was a Cuban brother and he was actually singing about voodoo, but nobody knew what he was doing. And he was talking about this particular deity, Babaluaye, which is called Shakpana. And then I have big man, the king of kings, the Alafin, Shango. And then my mother, all of these others are males. This is the only female one. She's a warrior woman, though. She's Oya. And that's Ea's deity as well. Now, let me tell you something about them. This one, Shango, is the king. Each of these beads represent a school of thought. Together, they represent an entire university on theocracy and theology, right? When they took us here and they took away our books and they didn't allow us to meet, we had to come up with a way to keep our system without them knowing. So we came up with this unique way, beads, colored beads, and a color code system. So I take the code system for the king. Think of all the qualities and attributes of a king. That's what Shango represents. But the king also has some negative qualities and attributes that must be overcome. Egoism, arrogance, greed, right? And so in the story of Shango, he goes into the dark side. And he gets off into the ego and the arrogance. And he had his two brothers fight and said, whoever win, I'm going to make the big man. I'm going to give you a lot of wealth and so forth. And his two younger brothers fight and one kills the other. Then the king realized, or they're laughing, that he has committed this crime, this negative, arrogant, ego crime that cost the life of one of his siblings. So he runs off into the forest and he kills himself, his physical self. How did it say? Obakoso? Obakoso. I mean, the king has not died, the king has not died, the king has not died. But when he run off in the forest to kill himself, because now he's aware that arrogance and egoism and hatred and desire and lust that he got from that cost the life is not an appropriate behavior for anybody, especially the king. So he goes into a mindset where he desires spiritual change. Well, in order to get spiritual change, the woman that cuts him down, who's sometimes an antelope running around the forest, is Oya. Oya represents change in process. So he has to marry her. She's always displayed as a woman with long locks flowing and stuff. And so the need for change, the need for the realization for spiritual change must marry spiritual change in process. And this is a drama, right? And so spiritual change in process will be a woman who practices polyandry. You know what that means, sisters? Polyandry means you have more than one husband. So she will marry, Ogun. Why would change marry Ogun? Because Ogun is the symbol of transformation as a result of the change. You understand? Because when you want to get iron, what do? You take a piece of rock, which is full of all kinds of impurities, and you put it in a fire, and you raise it to a high temperature, and then you take an anvil and you beat out the impurities, and you transform that rock into steel. Now the steel become a useful tool for the farm, for building, for all kinds of things. So the need for change, symbolized by Shango, and this is a minimal drama that one could make knowing these histories, marries the female who's the change in process, Oya, who marries Ogun, transformation as a result of change. So when you begin to understand what we wear around our neck, they're not just plastic and thread. They're a stimulus for a body of knowledge that represents schools of thought out of African philosophical systems that we managed to retain by using this code system, which is tantamount to a university. And our people to have pulled this off had to be an extraordinary intellect historically. That's why it's important. We got to master our history. Go back to the history. It'll erase the mystery. And then there is spirituality, which I tend to call African sacred science. What the European community call science is African sacred science. He just takes the sacred out of it. And he only arrived at this body of information. He got some of it through the Greek in the early days, because all Greeks admit that they trained in Africa. And one of the greatest Greek scholars is Plato. But in school, they don't give you Plato's work. They gave you Aristotle's writing on Plato, which is called The Republic. And they told you that Plato didn't write anything, but then you live long enough and you learn about Plato's writing. And one of his chief books, his primary book, is called the Phaedra, or Phaedrus. And in Phaedrus, Plato says, he didn't use the word African, he used the word Ethiopian. With Ethiopian is a Greek word that means burnt face, baked in the sun. And so Plato said the Ethiopian gave the world all of its sciences. And you can find this in a book by, if you can't find Phaedrus, there's a book on the history of mathematics by Kujari, chapter 1, paragraph 1. He starts off hitting the ball, right? Kujari, history of mathematics, chapter 1, paragraph 1 of his introduction. When you get into the book, it's going to blow your mind. But Plato says the Africans gave the world all of its sciences. And he said the greatest science, first he names them. He says arithmetic, geometry, what do you call when you write? Calligraphy, when you speak, like I'm speaking. What's that? Rhetoric. And he goes through all of them, and then he stops and says, but then he says medicine. He hits them all. Now this is Plato, and who can doubt Plato? Plato is the man. The world says Plato is the man, right? So if Plato says this, she's got to be right. Okay? But he said the greatest science of all that the African gave to the world is the science of writing itself. Plato says this. He lived there with them. He was there with them. He studied with them. So why don't they tell us that in school? When I was small, they said the father of history was called Herodotus. Then one day some black folks started reading Herodotus' book 2, where he gives almost everything that the Greeks end up doing, including their religion, to the Africans. And then Western scholarship says, well, Herodotus wasn't that important anyway. Well, he was important when I was a child. I read the Odyssey and Iliad of Homer at age 15. Homer said, they said the Odyssey and the Iliad for the young people was a book written by a Greek scholar named Homer, and he said that all of the gods of Greece had to go to Ethiopia every year to renew themselves. Do you understand that? That even their God had to check in with Africa. Say, yo, Mother Africa, I need some fire. I ran out of steam over there in the coal. History will erase the mysteries, is the point I'm trying to make by dropping these few little jewels, right? That if you know your history, Nobody can mess with you. Have anybody, I've got hundreds of tapes on YouTube. Have you ever seen anybody mess with me? Ain't nobody gonna mess with me. Because I stand on all those ancestors, white ones and black ones, who told the truth. People don't mess with truth. They hope you don't see the truth, but they don't mess with truth. So when we think of Buffalo and what we have to do, you got to get a control of economic, politics, and culture, and your spiritual understanding. Then you got to use that to get control of land, labor, and resources. Because you will not be able to get control of land, labor, and resources if you don't get control of the economic, politics, culture, and your spiritual bonding. You understand me? And one of the key to this is to control the vote in your community by learning not just voter registration, but serious voter education. How does the electoral system work in Buffalo? And why a handful of people in the Democratic Party is ruling it, and you ain't getting the goodies from it. But yet your vote is sending them back to Washington and Albany every year. Okay? So it is not the fact that somebody's running, it is who you have determined to run for your vote. So it becomes essential and important. My conclusion is, because we can carry on a history of ourselves for the longest time, is to realize that you've got to know history in order to get rid of somebody else's mystery. You're an African. When you came here, they just found a boat up here in one of the lakes, an African dug out, and it's damn near 1 million years old, so we don't know how long we've been here, right? But we know that the African populated the entire earth before any African became white. Now let's get that clear. White people is just African with a genetic problem. Okay? But their behavior over the last 10,000 years has been the problem for the planet Earth. The behavior, the greed, the murder, the marauding, the genocide against other peoples to steal natural resources for themselves when there's enough for everybody. And so it is our job as Africans to stop the thieves at the gate, bring all of this to a halt. But we can't do that if we're trying to imitate that, because if you're imitating that, you become the biggest thief of yourself there is. If you imitate your murderer, you become your murderer. That's real. We're the wealthiest people in the world. The African Americans spent close to $1.7 trillion last year. There's not a single African country that spent that much money. There's not a single Caribbean country that spent that much money. But you gave your $1.7 trillion to other ethnic Jews for their food, because their food tastes better than yours, for their false hair, because their false hair look better than yours, for their shoes or clothing style they made in Italy or Greece or whatever, or they made it in Haiti for slave labor and pretend it came from Italy, right? But they owned it. So we've got to wake up to how to get control of economic, politics, and culture, land, labor, and resources, and have your spirituality as your guide, right? Know that you're God having a human experience. When the great light decided to let be known that it exists, it creates lesser lights, which we are. Without the lesser lights, there is no great light, because we're the ones that keep renewing that energy, which is the great light. If you understand the sacred science of cosmology and ecology, you understand that you're God having a human experience, and every single African spiritual system, that is the truth that they state. In every single African language, they say God is every and all things at once. Even when you use the word Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it was never meant to be somebody up there or over there, okay? And so I was an imam, I'm al-Hajj Amin Shahid. I'm one of the few people credentialed in this hemisphere by the Rabat Alim al-Islamim to teach Islam. And Malcolm and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad were the only other two before me from here. So love self by getting to know self. Thank you very much.
So We're in a multi-task in our living room, so we all family, if nothing else, we've learned that. Professor Small, I'm gonna slide the microphone over to you, and we're gonna move our living room table so we can have a little music for you, all right? And we wanna treat you, what we're doing tonight, it's not over yet, we're gonna leave room for a couple of questions, but this is about to turn into a living room. What we're gonna do, Brother Henry Muhammad is celebrating 25 years of teaching violin and music to our young people. And he credits his teaching and his tutelage to Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And in Buffalo, the Muslims, the Christians, the Rascals, we all got to get along because ain't nobody but us. So we working with each other.
All right, but as soon as the musicians get ready, let's let them. Well, the Republic of New Africa was simply that the brothers and sisters realized that it wasn't just brothers and sisters fought to create the Republic of New Africa because they thought most Africans lived in the southern states, about 5 or 6 states in the south. And that if we would focus our energy on developing land, labor, and resources there, and the economic politics and culture there, we could create a new African nation right here in North America. Now that was nothing new. That was the same thing that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was asking about in what the Muslim wants when you look at the objectives of the Nation of Islam. Many of the men who became a part of the Republic of New Africa, like Malcolm X, came out of the Nation of Islam. So the movements were really not separate. People just were looking for new ways politically to try and implement something they saw as necessity. Because they felt that we could not get justice being having the politics of our daily lives controlled by the white Americans, whose psychology and philosophies and ideology that was bent on our death and destruction and impoverishment for hundreds of years. And they nearly pulled it off. It's not over yet. And it doesn't matter whether we call it the Republic of New Africa or anything. Most African Americans have moved back to those southern states. And we saw what happened in Mississippi. Jackson, Mississippi is a black city now. Many other parts of Mississippi is trying to organize around the model of Jackson, Mississippi. And we just saw the case won by Malik Zulu Shabazz and his team to get those terrorists who tortured those 2 brothers convicted and sentenced to prison. That was a major national victory, international victory for us. And the others they're trying to get in jail because it wasn't just those 3. So the possibility of if black people can get control, can aggregate their wealth, as they spell out in this book, Power Knowledge, by Dr. Claude Anderson. This book tells you how to do it. And if we could do what Claude Anderson tells us in this book, in the southern states of the United States, we would fulfill the aspirations of those who wanted to build a republic in America.
Is there any other question? We got a couple minutes before they're all set. Please come. Thank you. Quick questions? Yeah, quick questions. Yeah. Right here. Star student, come here. You get a free card.
Okay, Doc, I just want to thank, appreciate you coming to Buffalo, New York, first of all, born and raised here.
Thank you, sir.
I see you on YouTube a lot, following since Hidden Colors. And I mean, I can't thank you enough for all the hard, the work you put in and everything, first of all. And then just the Gullah Geechee, I was fascinated with that since learning about in college, You're from South Carolina. I just want to talk to us a little bit more about the Gullah community. Go down there.
Yeah. Well, North America is a big piece of real estate. And there are multiple African ethnic nations that have developed in North America. If you went to Virginia and Maryland, that's a whole nother cultural manifestation of African Americans. If you went into the Midwest and Detroit, Chicago, and other places, there's a whole other kind of cultural rhythm that goes on there. Music, food, dress, manifestation. Along the seacoast from North Carolina down to Gainesville, Florida, which is the rice belt, partially the tobacco belt and rice belt, but down in the rice belt, where that was always, for most of our history in this country, where the largest concentration of Africans lived unsupervised. That's the piece people left out. Because of the malaria mosquito that lived in the marshlands, whites could not stay there. So they left us to run our own cells on the plantation. So we just ran like Africa. So when we say Gullah Geechee, that's just another code name for African people who retained and tried to be African. That's basically what it is. And I want to just make a point. Some people try to create some separate little Gullah Geechee nation. There's no such thing. It was just Africans trying to be Africans. And many of them happen to come from Sierra Leone, where you have a large community that is called the Gulam. But you also have a large Angolan community, which is called the Golan. And so we don't know where they got the name tag from, you know, but we know they were in the rice belt. They were isolated by themselves for much of the year. And so they kept a distinct African language, retention in the language, food, and other habits. And that's what makes them distinctive.
All right. Baba, thank you. Baba, thank you for your work that I've been following. It's definitely helped to shine some light. My first question, but
no, you get one question, so don't skip it.
Okay. All right, so I've been studying different practices to try to find the truth. And the more I study, the more I see the connections. Like when I look at the Rastas in Jamaica, but I see that their temple is similar to that of the Voodoo temples in IET, and so on and so forth. So like, how do I find like the beginning? How do I find my way back?
You want more than God wants, because you ain't gonna find the beginning.
Say that again?
You're not going to find the beginning. There is no such thing. There is no beginning, there is no ending. That's Eurocentric mythology. No one can even scientifically construct a beginning, and no one can suppose an ending. What you will find is a continuity in behavior. And what you see, every religion you know is trying to do one thing: imitate the universe. That's all they're trying to do. All the Loas in the Loa and Voodoo represent a quality and attribute in nature and cosmology that has been discerned. And since we have some good Muslim brothers in here, I have to tell the Muslim brothers, we have a set of names called the 99 Pearls of Faith. 99 names of Allah. You know what they are? The same thing as the Orishas and the Loas and the Nettas. Qualities and attributes of what we call the divine or the universe. That's the sameness. If you appreciate that going in the door, you'll find more answers than you ever could find. What you have is different people in different locations, in different environments, trying to explain the same reality to themselves using different tools at a different level of understanding in a different ecological space. You're welcome.
So that was the last question. Now we are going to get some greetings, history, information, Muhammad School of Music, 25th year of teaching. First of all, can we just give them a strong hand? This brother has been working with our young people, moving from place to place. I mean, I remember when he was starting, I remember the continuation, and we all crisscrossed in music and performance. But this is the future of our world, and the continuity of those ancestors are these children. We have to support people that's supporting our children. Also with the discipline in the schools, in the community. So make sure we support those people here in our quest for our global understanding. Make sure we respect our local people. Thank you.
We're going to do our first number, and then I'll introduce the student. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome our guest brother. Thank you for coming to our city. Welcome and welcome. And as Brother Jomo shared, this is our 25th year. It's hard to believe 25 years have passed. But we love coming, here in the community. And we've been on a 25th anniversary tour. So we've been everywhere from Kleinhans Music Hall to schools, churches, nursing homes to celebrate this momentous year. That first piece was Bob Marley, No Woman, No Cry. Then a couple weeks ago, we held our 25th anniversary concert, and we performed the music of Beethoven. And like them, I'm a student of Mr. Louis Farrakhan, who is both a violin mentor, so he's a classical violin virtuoso, also spiritual mentor. But he was the one that I first heard that Beethoven was a black man. And, being in classical music, which is, Western European, and there were times when I would play in orchestras, I'd be the only black person in the whole orchestra. Even in college it was like that. But to hear that Beethoven was a brother like me, like us, it gave a different perspective on how I now view and teach this art form, this instrument. So we did Beethoven a couple of weeks ago. We did an entire Beethoven program. We're going to do one of Beethoven's pieces next, and then we'll end with another artist that has legendary status. But this is Beethoven's Ode to Joy from Symphony No. 9. We're going to end with another legendary artist. So Beethoven, that piece that we just played, the Ninth Symphony, this past May was the 250th year of Beethoven premiering that piece. 250 years. A black man wrote a piece that 250 years later we're still talking about and playing. This next artist that we're going to do, which is Michael Jackson, I think has that same legendary dynamic. And when I, to my 25 years of teaching students, when I look at my students, and they come in the studio and they have the little violins and they sound scratchy and whatnot, I look at them like they are the next Beethoven, the next Michael Jackson, the next Mozart, because the seeds that we plant in them now, even if we don't live to see those seeds germinate, those seeds grow up to become the great men and women that we admire, but they all started like these young people here. And so I encourage everyone, I see one of my students there, in the audience there too, who's a student of mine at the Arthur O. Eve School of Distinction. I encourage all young people, all parents, to give your children the gift of cultivation, whether it's through the violin, whether it's through martial arts, whether it's through dance or some sort of cultural expression, but cultivate that in them now, because again, this is 25 years for us, 25 years later, you're going to see all the brilliance that, that's going to be coming out of them. So we're going to end with some Michael Jackson. This is Michael Jackson, Smooth Criminal. Thank you very much. And once again, thank you, brother, for coming to our city.
So the last thing I just want to ask, just to record history, we have the oldest black-owned newspaper representing the Criterion from 1925, getting ready for 100 years. As Juneteenth marched towards 50, the Buffalo Criterion will be marching towards 100. So we talk about the black history. Grandfather actually went to Tuskegee University. All right, so when we go to that library on Jefferson, this family, the history that he was just expounding on is continuing in our community. So to commemorate this, if we could maybe just move the stand. Dr. Small, can you please get a seat in the middle, and can we get our whole set of children to sit on the right and left? You all can stay where you are. You'll be standing behind them. I just want to get one picture. Maybe that table there might can get moved back. Brother Frank, you'll be able to get your picture. Everybody else, get your cameras out. All other children, everybody 18 and under, we want to have you come and sit at this level. Oh, here.
I want to see the young people to know you are absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
And teachers around Macon, you are absolutely a brilliant professor. Thank you, sir.
All right, so everyone else under 18, I want you to gather around Dr. Small, and I want everybody else, all of the musicians, can you get right behind him? Just enclose right behind him. All right, all the other children, I want you to get close to them. Can you get on each side, left and right side? Can you arrange them for me, brother? Yeah, get some on each side. Elders, elders, can you come please and let her go. Elders, can the elders in our community, those, let's say, we're just gonna say 60 and older, can you all come in and maybe get a chair and wrap around with these children amongst you? You can stand if you want, just get in where you fit in. And all of you who are under 65 or that age where you can, I want you to sit down with the children and express your youth. All right? So all of you who are above 18 and those who are under that 60, 65 bracket, whatever, I need you all to sit on the ground with the children. So that way we all can show that we're here together, all ages, just one family. Where's our staffer at? We need her in this picture. Can she come and get a picture? Yeah. All right, so everybody's you got to do this thing like a family reunion. Y'all got to act like we family based upon what we just heard. So show the world from Buffalo, once again, how we're going to do this thing. Yes, sir. Can we take the picture first, then we say the word? Okay. Is everybody in? Is everyone in? Shango, you coming in?
Let's go. I'm gonna answer.
Mother, fathers. Who was that, Mary?
I think that's not.
Come on, Mary. Whose house? Mary's house. All right, so now we're gonna let Brother Frank. Brother Frank, you got your flash? You got your pen? All right, so don't start smiling until we're ready. I'm giving everybody the cheat code. So everybody take their picture. Now we're gonna let Brother Frank get in the middle. Everybody got your pictures? All right. And then we're gonna give Brother Frank some room so he can get behind you and get a one for the newspaper. Okay? All right. No. Thank you. All right, Brother Frank. We're waiting on you. Can y'all give him space and liberty so he can get the shots?
You need to stay with chair, Frank.
Yeah, somebody help me make sure you hold that chair. All right.
Make sure he got this full, please. Somebody put his back in.
Thank you.
In the chair. Okay, family, we look real good. The only person I can't see is this way. Come this way, just a little bit. There you go. Brother Chang, come that way a little bit.
This way.
Yeah, that's it.
Everybody should see his eye.
Everybody looking nice. Okay.